that's the girlfriend you need, right? That's the girlfriend you need.
I think I want to sit on
Where do you want to sit?
this side.
All right.
I always feel like I'm going to fall off these fucking chairs.
Yeah, please don't lean back.
Oh, I need to get, this is, what is
Hold on,
this?
hold on.
When I dusted, was it gone? These lights are terribly obnoxious. Huh? Because we're recording. Huh? This is my better side though. Why?
Okay. There you go.
No, it's on this side too. Thank you.
Give it a
No.
boom. Hey. But we can't hold it, right?
Huh?
We can't hold it. Where are we going to put our drinks? We're going to hold
I
it.
have nowhere to put the water.
Yeah, I think that's going to have to be it. I mean, we could put it back there, but is that too far? I don't want us like. I guess we could. I guess that's
So when I need water, I'll be like, please get me my water. Hold on, let me lean back a little bit. I'll sue brace light.
KSB. We are about to begin. Let's take our seats.
You know what? I want a copy of the book.
I'll take one from you.
Ron. Oh, never mind. Thank you.
Oh, you changed the title?
That's what I told you. I said you could say the shorter title.
All right.
For the paperback. It's smaller.
Okay.
I heard that. She was saying, put your little butt over here.
Okay, guys, first of all, I want to just welcome everybody from 10KSB. It's incredible to see so many different entrepreneurs here from so many different cohorts. And we are here to celebrate and learn from our guest of honor, MORI TAHERIPOUR. Thank you for visiting us in my space. My name is Robert Brace, so rude of me not to introduce myself. I'm owner of Brace Life Studios, and we do personal training and everything wellness. But we are here to learn from our dear friend, MORI TAHERIPOUR. And so I'm just going to jump right in. How you doing, MORI?
I'm doing fabulous, actually.
Yes.
I actually so where's Glenn? Glenn, where are you? Glenn? So Glenn. I didn't know Glenn was coming, so I started my tears, as you know, we have a lot of those in my class. My tears started a long time ago, the minute I laid eyes on Glenn. So I'm super excited that you all are here, and we've got a lot to talk about.
Yes.
Lots.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we do. So as you know, MORI is the author of Bring Yourself, How to Negotiate Fearlessly. Woo! And yes, go ahead, you can do that as well. You can and we've all been in her class, right? So MORI, let's just kick it off, man. Why did you decide to write this book?
So it took me a really long time to be talked into writing this book, actually. And some of you know the story, some of you don't. But It was 2010 when, well, let me not lie, he was dating my best friend at the time. And he said, hey, I've heard that you've been told that you should write this book. I've heard you've had a lot of success around this. You know, let's talk. And I'd already been sort of encouraged to write the book. People had seen sort of what I do in my class. And so I was like, me write a book? Have you lost your mind? This is a trend in my professional life, by the way. And I was like, what can I possibly bring to this field? Because it's so populated, it's super saturated. There's a million negotiation books out there. It took me 4 years to talk myself into writing a book. Because I didn't want to just have just another book out there, because I thought there's just so much out there. But what I really felt was missing was sort of my philosophy and what you all have sort of experienced in class, because I thought that so much that was out there fed into a lot of the myths around negotiations, which I thought was not healthy at all. But a lot of it sort of talked about who you should be, what you should become. Very prescriptive, and I thought maybe it's just me, but I've had the great privilege of having all these people that I've worked with, all my students, who are actually great just as they are. And they don't need to become somebody else. They just need to give themselves permission to be more of themselves. I'm already getting emotional. So that's really what I wanted. I wanted something that was empowering, that told people that you don't need to change, that really the most courageous people that I know are the ones who step more into being exactly who they are. So that was really the first premise of it. And then really just to sort of do away with all these like myths and these things that I thought were holding people back. So I wanted a little bit of truth-telling and a lot of empowerment. And that was really the basis for it.
I think it's interesting that you said, for my students who experience my class. You didn't say students who take my class. And I think that most of us who've been in that class understand that it's not a class you take, it is an experience, right? And so I just remember being in the class and, you know, all of these entrepreneurs and looking around the room, and Mori gets going, and then there's sniffles and there's tears behind me. And, you know, my background is, I was also an ordained minister, so it was like a church revival of people testifying. And so my question is, how do you create an environment around negotiations that is so, one, practical, but emotional and spiritual?
Because I think negotiations is truth. And look, I think I'm successful at doing what I do because, and we'll talk about this, I know, but it is when I am most honest about who I am is in that classroom. And I think that I don't want to ever teach from a place of perfection because I'm hardly that. And my life has been filled with so many mistakes and so many shortcomings that it's almost like being the mom that says, I want to keep you from making the same mistakes I've made. It's sort of that same approach, right? So I think that it's really important for me to be sort of naked with respect to these things and really be honest about it, because I think only when I found my voice was I able to find my own happiness and my own gratification. And look, that came very late in life. And so that's really part of it, is that I think the sort of the churchiness of it comes from truth and being able to sort of wholeheartedly being able to share that. And I think we all walk the same, they're very different journeys, but we walk a lot of the same journeys. We have so many shared experiences that we don't talk about. We always feel like we're the only person who's experiencing that. We always feel like there's shame and there's guilt around the things that we experience. As entrepreneurs, we're like islands onto ourselves. And I think that to allow ourselves to be in a room where there's so much love and there's so much compassion, and to feel that is really the magic of 10KSB, to be honest with you. And when we find that, there's like, the bond is like no other. And so I think that's where it comes from. I'm not afraid to be emotional in that place, because I think it's where the magic happens, is where meeting you all where you are.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you do it so well, and you talk about truth and being truthful, and it seems so simple, but the level of vulnerability that you get to when you teach and when you speak is not really, it's not something you see all the time. A lot of people teach from a position of strength or teach from a position of authority, but that vulnerability piece is so powerful. So how have you been able to allow yourself to be truly vulnerable in front of so many people?
So how many of you have seen me cry in class? Yeah, okay.
We didn't even have to ask the question. It's like
So I never thought I would teach. I was asked to teach by my own negotiations professor at the Wharton School. Robert has met him. And I thought he was nuts. I was like, me teach, are you crazy? And he's like, yes, you. And so 20 plus years later, here I am. The first 3 years that I taught, I was very by the book, right? Because I didn't.
I think that is so powerful because as entrepreneurs, when we talk about authenticity, I've heard you say before that you know, teaching is where you feel you're most authentic. And as entrepreneurs, I think for many of us, we feel most alive when we're in our businesses and doing what we do and engaging with our customers and what we're passionate about. And at the same time, maybe there's some people in our families, in our lives who think we're crazy, who think we're being irresponsible, who think you're delusional, and why are you doing that? And so I guess my question for you is, how do we deal with that? Like you've said, you know, you're not as authentic in front of your family, and it can be painful. It can be painful when those who love you or who've raised you don't get you or don't see you in this kind of way.
Painful, yeah. I don't need it, though, anymore. And I think that I spent so much of my life trying to be exactly who they wanted me to be. And I just felt like I was just a disappointment, always, right? And so when I made the decision that this is how I choose to live my life, this is who I want to be. All of you have heard this story. My parents wanted me to be a doctor. I was not a doctor, and, you know, for a very long time. And, you know, like everybody does, oh, I want to change the world, or I want to affect people. And I thought that was the only path, right? That was the only lane to that. I found another lane to affect people. And I think I've gotten to the point where I don't need other people to tell me that this was the right way. Age helps. At some point, it just doesn't matter as much anymore in any circumstance. But the other part of it is that, you know, it takes so much to have to prove yourself. And that energy I just choose to put somewhere else. Now, I've also forgiven my family because I know that everything that they've done has been out of love for me, right? But everybody thinks that they can live your life better. You're the only one who can live your life better. And nobody knows how to do that for you but yourself. And I'm not saying close yourself off. I'm just saying surround yourself with people that lift you. And for the people, because we can choose those people. Our family, we don't get to choose. I love my family, I adore my family, but I think my relationship with them has become 1,000 times better when I didn't feel like it was performative. Now I just choose to share a certain part, not 100%. And, you know, I talk about authenticity a lot, and people are like, well, you know, you can't be yourself all the time everywhere, right? You can't bring yourself everywhere all the time. That's absolutely true. But I don't think everybody deserves all of you all the time. So you give to people what you choose to give to people. And whatever you save, you honor that and you cherish that and you protect that. And then you give a little bit more when people deserve a little bit more. Because there's just so much of us that we can give, right? And life isn't meant to be performative. So it doesn't hurt as much anymore. I'm actually quite content. Now, unfortunately, by the time I figured this out, both my parents got dementia. And so that's a whole different story. But I think it's all about sort of coming to peace with your pieces.
Wow, wow. I hope we're taking notes because everybody is a little bit of a gem, I think. Now, for most of us, how many of us had our businesses during the pandemic? Okay. So I know for me, one, MORI was instrumental in helping me keep going during the pandemic and seeing what my business could become. But I think that it's been about a year and a half since the pandemic slowed down. And I think I find myself having some COVID PTSD, right? When I think about, oh shoot, our doors are actually open. I'm looking at this crowd and I'm like, there are people in this gym right now, which is awesome, right? And I know that you started your book during COVID, and that was a journey for you. So can you tell me a little bit about the emotional stress that produced and any lessons you learned about coming out of it and how to move past it?
It sucked. You know, by that point, 10 years working on something, and you're like, the day it drops, literally the warehouse that would distribute the books is closed, right? So imagine that. And it was really hard, but I chose on that day. So I was thinking I'm gonna be in New York, I'm gonna be on morning shows, you know, all the things. So we weren't supposed to have class that day. I told my students. And so when that didn't happen, I wrote to all of them and I said, folks, we're gonna do class and we're gonna be online. And in retrospect, it was really the best thing I could do, because shy of celebrating my book, the only next best thing was actually to be exactly where I was meant to be, which was with my students. And it was an emotional class. It was a really important class for us. We were all scared. We were all afraid. Talk about really vulnerable. That was that day. So the beginning was really hard. But you know, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur since 1997. I've been through more economic downturns than I care to think about. And I think it's in those moments that you have to like call on those things, right? Because we're quick to forget when we've actually been strong. We're quick to forget when we've been at our most resilient. We're quick to forget to give ourselves credit. And I think when the fear dropped, because for the first 3 months I probably slept, I'm not even kidding you, maybe an hour and a half a night. Literally, I was going so much that I didn't even know. And then by like April or May, I was like, what am I doing? But then I started telling myself, look, you've been here before. It hasn't been a pandemic, but basically all of Silicon Valley basically dropped off the face of this earth, you know, early when I started my business. Then we had the other economic downturn. Then it was the whole Lehman Brothers, all that kind of stuff. Like, it had happened so many times, and I was like, you know this damn playbook. What are you afraid of? So I think that was it for me. And I know you and I have had this conversation, and we sort of, so Robert, by now you know, he's my physical trainer. And my friend, and my, yeah. But we had taken some time off the early days.
Right.
But when we came back together, this was a lot of our conversation, was that everything we need, we already have. What are you looking for, right? All the strength, all the resilience, all the experience, we already have it. And we just have to call it on it ourselves, because we're really quick to forget. We're quick to forget the good and really quick to remember the bad. And so that became sort of retelling my own story was what was really important, I thought.
And just going off of that, you do talk a lot about reframing your story, and you have this principle of taking inventory when you're negotiating yourself out of those dark places. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. So those of us who deal with sort of the lack of self-worth, the really negative inner dialogue, right, that voice. It's really like when I hear my bio being read when I'm about to get on stage, and I'm like, who are they talking about? You know, I just want to crawl under a rock. It's really hard, folks. It's really, really hard. And I struggle with that a lot. But I know the nice thing about, again, age and experience is that I know that damn voice is coming like a locomotive train. Like, I can hear it. I'm like, it's coming. And so this is what we're going to do. And I quickly run through my inventory, right? I've been here before. This is what I've accomplished. This is what, nobody's given me anything. This is what you've done. This is, you've earned this. You've gotten the teaching awards. You've done this. And then I bring the temperature down. But I think that inventory has been my way of dealing with it, is like giving myself that information so that I can quickly dissipate the fear, the anxiety, all of that. That's my way. Now everybody, you can find your way, but all I'm telling you is that, and I tell people this when I talk to people about like salary increases or getting funding. Folks, if you are a person of color, if you are a woman, you go in to get venture capital funding or angel funding, you know, the first questions they're going to ask you is, how are you going to deal with failure? The men don't get those questions. The men are like, how are you going to handle the success? Right? Like, it's all made to, this world is not made to make us feel better about ourselves. That's your responsibility, right? So like this, find those tools that you can draw on, that when we get pushed, that when we are in that moment where we like question everything that we know about ourselves, that you're like, wait a minute, but I've got the tools. And whatever that is, and for me, it just happens to be that sort of the inventory, if you will. I'm gonna kick you out of my class.
Oh yeah, put your phones away, remember that? Well now, I remember we were talking, and I was on one of those downward spirals. And I was talking about how I didn't know, it was during COVID, I didn't know what was going to happen with the gym. I was like, I did an infomercial, and that infomercial didn't turn out great.
He always wanted to do an infomercial.
I always wanted to do an infomercial. I did an infomercial, and I went out to LA, and that didn't turn out great. And then I talked about, I had a reality show on TV, and I thought I was going to be famous and everything, and that didn't turn out great. And so, you know, I'm sitting here in this gym, and it's a pandemic, and that's, you know, probably not going to turn out great. And I remember you putting a mirror up. It's like you were putting a mirror up to me, and I'm sure that she's put a mirror up to many of you as well, right? So that you see yourself. And so thank you for that on behalf of myself and everybody else. But that means you must be an empath. You must be able to feel where people are at, put a mirror up. So let's talk about that little juju there and what that is. But also, more importantly, like, that must be exhausting.
Is this the one that you weren't going to tell me about and then you said I'm going to ask you?
Yeah, one of them. There's a few more coming.
I am an empath. I feel everybody's energy. It is really exhausting. Look, I teach, again, Tuesdays undergrads. I've been doing this for 20 years. This coming spring will be the first time I'm not teaching my undergrads at Wharton. I'm taking a little break. But every Tuesday, that train ride home from Philadelphia after class, I am a hot mess. I cry from the time I get on the train to the time I get to DC. And they all know me. I like to drink. So I'm in the first class car, and like the woman, God bless her, she's like, Maury, is it that kind of day or the other kind of day? That kind of day means it's a wine day. The other kind of day means she's getting hard alcohol. And then she leaves me alone, God bless her, and I'm crying because I feel the weight of all of it. But it is, it's the most beautiful, amazing gift on this planet, because to be that present with people and to feel that is like, it's extraordinary. It's the way that I feel like I can help, and the way that I think I can serve better. That's why I know all of you. That's why I know all your names and your backgrounds and when you walk into my class, it's how I serve. It's hard, yes. So what do I have to do? I have to manage my own sort of mental health. And that comes with, I'm also an introvert. So then I close myself off. So then I take the time. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to put on makeup. I don't want to, like, I just I save my space. But that's what we all have to do. Now I do it as the extreme as an empath, but we all get pulled on, and we're all pouring into people, always. Whether your parents, whether your friends, whether your daughters and sons, we are pouring constantly. And folks, if you pour and pour and pour, your pitcher will be empty and there's nothing left to pour, right? So you find that space. So yes, is it hard, but I can't imagine. I feel like I go through life like in Technicolor. Like I'm at like IMAX level all the time. And it's, would I want it any other way? God, no. But you just have to find a way to you know, get your energy back.
So, who puts the mirror up to you and pours into you?
Robert Brace, I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm sorry. I cursed.
I said, who shines the mirror up to her and who pours into her?
I hate the mirror. I just do. I don't like who stares back at me. So it's a really hard. And so I do it for myself, though. I'll tell you, I challenge myself sometimes with love and sometimes with punishment. But I try to make it as loving as I possibly can. But I know I'm only as good as, I know that I'm only at my best when I believe in myself. I know that I'm only at my best when I bet on myself. And that's the work, that's been the journey. So nobody really shines. I close myself off, and you know this. I mean, you see you put the mirror up to me. Now I'm crazy, I will admit to this, right? He's seen a lot of the crazy when we work out. But I have taught myself how to do it because I've really never had anybody that, the mirror that other people put up was even worse than the mirror I put up for myself. So yeah, I've made my way that way. Now I've gotten therapy, I work out, I find a way. But again, for those of you that share the space, it's hard. And it's like survival, you know, it really is. But if I don't change the way I talk to myself, then how on earth am I expecting you all to do that for yourself? So that's really you all keep me accountable and you don't even know that's what you do. But I think that's where my mirror is. But it's really hard. Yeah. It's really hard.
Because you also mentioned in one conversation how you just got off stage speaking at 10KSB and you were kind of boxed in a corner just because of the way the room was situated, and somebody just stopped you and just started encouraging you and shining that mirror, and it was hard for you. So talk to me a little bit about that, but also, I guess the bigger question, a little bit about that, but it can be hard for us to hear the positive.
Yeah.
When, like you literally said someone had to corner you and tell you.
So it was the summit in DC. I don't know how many of you were there. This is the last one, not the 2018 one, but the 2021 during the pandemic. And I just presented, I had all this stuff rehearsed in my head that I was going to talk about, and what had been eating at me all morning was that you're a fraud, Maury. How do you dare get on that stage and tell people how to communicate effectively when you can't even communicate with your own family? Now, this is when both of my parents had dementia. This is my dad was alive at the time. And it was a disaster. Like, every time I went to see them, I would fight with myself the entire car ride. You're going to get in there. You're not going to get mad. You're going to be graceful. You're going to give them grace. You're going to give them love. You know, they don't really understand this. They're not rational. You can't be, all of it. Get to the house, walk in. 5 seconds later, I'm screaming. And so it was eating at me because I'm like, I'm going to get on stage in the summit with 300 people in this room, and I'm going to be like, let me show you how to communicate. You are full of it, right? This is all the stuff that's going through my head. So anyway, I get on stage, and me being who I am, about 10 minutes into it, not even, you were there.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm a fraud. I don't know how to do this. This is what's heavy on my heart. This is what's happening. This is what I'm struggling with. This is why it's so hard. This is what I think we have to do to be effective. This is why I go like half teaching, half repenting all at once. And that was that. So I get upset. I'm like, oh my God, you're supposed to help them. They're not supposed to help you. All this stuff, right? And so then I have to do a second session. And then later that afternoon, there was another speaker. So I'm like, I'm going to go in the auditorium and hear these people. So I'm standing outside the door of the auditorium, and one of my scholars stops me. And literally, my back is up against the wall. And she's like, I'm just going to tell you what you've done for us. And she goes into this whole thing, right? And pours into me and pours. And meanwhile, tears are running down my face. It was life-changing in so many ways, because what I realized at that point was that, why is it so hard for us to hear a compliment? She literally had to like corner me where I couldn't get away, so I had to hear everything that she had to say. And by the end of it, I was able to just say thank you. But for 10 minutes, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is so uncomfortable. What's happening over here? I just completely bombed this. I'm a total failure. What is happening over here? And I just wanted to be like, no, 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 that's not me. I couldn't even say thank you. But she poured into me so much that I got the data points. The inventory was given to me. And finally, I was like, thank you. And I've never forgotten that conversation. I've never forgotten what that moment was like. But, I mean, why is it so hard for us to hear a compliment? Now, if she had come up to me and been like, you're a disaster, I would have been like, yes, I am. I'm so sorry. I apologize for wasting your time. But I was like, it was so hard. So, folks, look, the way we see ourselves is not how the world sees us. Right? And if, again, that whole, like, how we work against ourselves, like, if we could just say stop and say thank you and feel that which is actually your truth, it's life-changing. It really is. And we all need it. We all need to do it for ourselves, but we need to even do it for other people, really.
So
Thanks for that question.
Anytime.
Yeah.
I've got more of those. Now, we know you as empathetic. We know you as compassionate. We know you as, you know, getting in touch with your feelings. But in the gym, there's a different side to I would say that there is an inner beast within MORI TAHERIPOUR. And so an inner aggression, I don't know. Yeah, so let's talk about that, because that is a very different side. And I'm grateful that I get to see it, because, you know, I see all this and the tears, but then I'm like, oh, okay, there's a little gangster in there too. So, what is that?
Well, first of all, I am competitive. I mean, people think like I teach from a place of grace and empathy, but you give me something to compete for, it's not pretty. And, you know, it's funny. So I just went back to SoulCycle, I don't know, a month and a half ago. How many of you have experienced SoulCycle? Okay, so it's indoor biking, but it's dark. They got candles on. You can't see anybody. It's just you, right? So 2 weeks ago, no, this past Saturday, I'm in SoulCycle, and I have this epiphany, because I am crazy. I will call Robert and be like, look, I saw a picture of so-and-so on your website. Who's that woman? I am going to lift heavier than that woman. How many pounds? Literally, I'm like, how many pounds was she lifting? All right, next time I'm in the gym, this is what we're doing. He's like, she's been training for it for months. I don't care. That's what we're gonna do. How many pull-ups does she? Okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do it better. I get crazy. So I'm sitting on that bike and I'm like, what is it that you're doing? Like, why is it that you're so nuts? And because then I work through pain. Like, literally, he's like, how's your shoulder feeling? I'm like, it's gonna be all right. He's like, no, how is it feeling right now? I'm like, it's all right, I can handle it. So he's like, go to 20 pounds, go to 10 pounds. I'm like, you don't think I can do 20 pounds? We go through this whole thing. And
Like all the time. Like
all
this
the time.
This is my trauma.
So I thought I should just pull it apart and think about my own mirror again. Like, so what is it that I do? So here are a few lessons from SoulCycle that day. 1, life has never been easy, so I think that pain is natural. I think it's supposed to hurt because it always has. So when somebody says, just go to a 10-pounder, I'm like, why? It's okay if I have pain in my shoulder. Like, what's life without pain? It's crazy. But it's because nothing has ever been, it's supposed to, I'm supposed to have that pain sensation, which is nuts, folks. It's not supposed to be painful. Like, that's not natural. That's not normal, right? So what I told myself that day, and so ever since, it's only been a few days, but now I've been going to yoga, I've been stretching, because I'm like, oh, this is what it's meant to be like, pain-free, right? Now when he's like, just, it's only been a few days, but he's like, go to the lighter way. I'm like, let me go to the lighter way, Robert. Because I'm like, why am I torturing myself? Just because that's the life I've known, it doesn't mean that that's the life I'm supposed to live, right? Lesson 1. Lesson 2. The thing about SoulCycle is that you go in there, you give yourself more of an incline, so it gets harder, but you don't go from like 1 to like 10. It's a little bit at a time. Then I was like, and you know what the beauty of that is? That it actually, we're growing and we're developing and we're getting better a few steps at a time. A little bit of it at a time is actually all that you need, because before you know it, you're on a hill and it's kicking your ass. But it didn't mean that you went from 0 to 100. It just meant a few small steps at a time, and all of a sudden you look back and you're like, I'm on top of Mount Everest. How did I get here? Well, you got there. You just didn't have to push yourself to that top without having to experience that journey, right? Third thing, and maybe most important for somebody as crazy as me who's competitive, it's dark. You can't really worry about what other people are doing. You only worry about yourself. And what I realize is that that's why I really love it so much, because my competitive side sometimes, I do the whole comparison. Why am I not where she is? Why have I achieved what he has? Why have I not done better? And the comparison will kill you, folks, right? Because all you're doing is you're putting your energy there instead of really pouring back into yourself and saying, I don't have to be that person. That actually wasn't meant for me. This is what was meant for me. And how am I going to do the best with what I have rather than trying to be something that I'm not meant for somebody else? I truly do believe that things were meant for us. But when I get into that super competitive mode, and maybe it's a little bit of jealousy, nobody ever talks about being jealous. We all get jealous, folks. But where that comes from is that notion of wanting to live a life that wasn't meant for us. It wasn't meant for you. That wasn't really where you were supposed to be. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And if you can remind yourself of that and really just cherish the space that you're in and just really focus on yourself, then that's really when you're at your best. So those were like my little SoulCycle lessons, but really I've changed. Have I not changed over just the last week?
It's been a few days.
It's a small, I have changed.
You know when you're kind of looking at someone like, is this real? Is this? So, but yes, yes. So I've got like just 3 more questions for you. I think one of the things that's really important is we talk about this concept of the toxicity of success, right? And meaning that we accomplish these things, we get to these things that we never thought we'd get to, and then instead of celebrating, we move the goalpost. Well, I got, like what I was saying, well, I finally got that infomercial, but I didn't make $1 million, right? So, and I got this, but it wasn't quite what I expected. And so we're always moving the goalpost, and then success becomes actually toxic because we can't just sit and enjoy it. So I know you have a few thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that we, particularly entrepreneurs, because we are really only competing against ourselves half the time. It's like our own little, I think that celebrating the small wins is really important for us sometimes. I know you all come to my class and I'm like, screw the small, go for the big, set the aspirational goals, right? But I think that's something different. I think that just from the place of achievement, look, just to get out of bed on some days is an achievement, right? Like the standards that we hold ourselves to sometimes are not healthy at all. Now, Robert, can you tell them where you started your career?
Where I started my career?
Because I don't want them to be like, he wants to do an infomercial. No.
No.
Where did it start?
I was a professional ballet and modern dancer, and so that's why I came to New York from London. And then from there, I took a very illogical turn, but I went from that.
But who did you come to New York for? Where were you performing?
I was on scholarship at the Alumni School, then at Dance Theatre of Harlem, and then I was soloist at the Metropolitan Opera Ballet, and I danced on a lot of major stages with a lot of people. So, thank you. And so now you weren't supposed to ask me.
Yeah, whatever.
Switch the whole situation up. So,
but that's the whole thing, though. Like,
right.
you know, to stop and celebrate those things, because all he ever talked about was like what he wasn't doing. Like Robert had literally, we were sitting there talking, and he's like, I only have 10,000 followers on Instagram. And at the time, I was like, I don't know, 1,500 or something. I'm like, look, do you know what I would give for 10,000 followers? I was like, oh, do you know what that means? And like every time he would say something, I'm like, do you know what that means? And I think that you have changed so much, because he was like, you know, and I only have this space. And I'm like, Robert, maybe that space is exactly what you were supposed to have. Like, stop looking, just look behind you. Like, maybe this was it. And now he creates this magic in this space all the time. But you were moving your own damn goalposts, right? Like, oh, that did, oh my God, woe is me. I'm like, if this man tells me one more time he's got 10,000 Instagram followers, we're gonna have a situation. But it's very easy to do, right? We like, hey, time out. I'm awesome. I achieved this. I never thought I could. Okay, now let's go.
yeah, for sure.
Instead of, okay, I'm here, but oh yeah, that was cute, but okay, now I'm supposed to be doing this. Then, you know, before you know it, it's the next thing, and then it's the next thing, and it's the next thing, and you never got out for just a moment. You're driving down the highway, you never went and got gas, right? Because then soon you'll find yourself running on empty because you didn't give yourself that moment, right?
Absolutely. I'm learning. Two final stories I want you to tell. Now, we just talked about her intensity and how she works out. And she really does. I mean, if you've seen my Instagram, you've seen some of it. She's super intense. But it's in such a contrast to in 2010, when you were diagnosed with MS, and you were running, like doing so much at that time. So you know what I'm referring to. Let's talk a little bit about your emotional state when you found out about MS, and how and what the process was for you to be able to move past that. Not so much, you understand.
Yeah, no. 2010, I was divorcing my former business partner. We were married, but you know what I mean. And a really dark time in my life. I left him. I walked away with $250,000 worth of debt. But I was like, I choose freedom. I'll be all right. And at that point, I didn't know I was going to be all right, but I chose freedom. And but then I was like running around like a crazy person, trying to like bid for grants and look for opportunities. And short story is, I didn't have time for MS. I didn't have time to be sick. So this huge grant was due, and I started feeling numbness in my arms, and I was like, I don't have time for this. I'll go to the doctor later. I gotta get this grant in, I gotta get this done, I gotta get that done. Who has time? So I kept ignoring it, I go to a fundraiser, it was a luncheon in DC, and you know, they service the food, and I'm like, I can't pick up silverware. I have absolutely no way. I'm looking at it, I don't know how to move my arms. Like, I can't, I'm that numb. So I was like, okay, Houston, we have a problem, right? So I left the luncheon, I took myself to the hospital. And they did MRIs, and I was called back to get my results. And Dr. Feelgood, not, walks in, you know, literally, like, maybe it's a little dramatic, but I swear to God, all I remember is he walked in, he's like, hey, how are you? You have MS. Like, it was like, you know, you have a fever. It was like that. I was like, wow, I think he just told me I have MS. And it was, look, it was so abrupt, I didn't even cry. I was like, okay, because I just mirrored what he just gave me. I was like, okay, that's all right, okay, great. And he's like, you're gonna have to do these steroids just to get the feeling back in your arm, this, that, and the other. We gotta bring down the inflammation, just talking. You know, the nurse comes over, she's like, who do you have to help when you're injecting yourself with this stuff? I was like, I need nobody. Do this myself, right? Because when I left that hospital, all I could think about was, who do I know? What does a person with MS look like? They're in a wheelchair. They, like, every horrible story I could possibly tell myself, I told myself in that minute. So when they said that the nurse is coming, I'm like, I don't need anybody's help because I am single. I don't have anybody. What am I going to do? So I have to learn as of right now how to take care of myself. That was my mindset. I was crazy. And so once I got done with the treatment, all I knew was that I am not going back to him, that doctor. So I got to find myself another doctor. My best friend at the time, who has since passed away, he worked in the healthcare system in DC, found me by, he just happened to be at a bar. It's the craziest story. But he found his way to getting me in to see the top neurologist, not just in DC, but one of the best in the US. And I went to see him, and my whole story, so I was gonna walk to Georgetown Hospital. I was walking there, I was like, I'm done, right? Like, this is my life, is gonna be, you know, relegated to a wheelchair at some point, this, that, and the other. For somebody who's very independent, it's like the worst thing somebody could tell you. I get to the doctor, this doctor, he opens the door, Dr. Tornatore at Georgetown Hospital, and the first thing he does is give me a hug. And not just any hug, but you know, those really good, like, juicy hugs, like the, you know, love. It was love, and he just held me. I was like, wow. And then he's like, basically tells me, like, you've probably been living with MS already for 8 years. I had lost my vision in my left eye a long time ago. He's like, that was probably the first signs of it, but look, you've been doing all the 8 years, no medication. Look where you are. You are this healthy. You've been doing this without even being treated. You are strong. And if it's okay with you, this is what I want to do. I want to keep you this healthy. You good with that? I was like, I'm good with that. Like, here we are all of a sudden in church, right? He's like, you are strong. I was, yes, I am. He's like, we're going to keep you this healthy. Yes, we are. And he's like, we're going to go really hard. Like, this is like some really strong, you know, treatment. This is what we give this to people who are more advanced. I'm like, let's do it, right? So I'm all in. Then he's like, sit with me. So he brings me over. I sit by his computer, and he shows me my brainstem. Not cute, like it looked like a Swiss cheese, piece of Swiss cheese, holes, right? But what I saw more importantly was what it was and what it meant. And he educated me, and he gave me all this information, and I felt empowered, and there was knowledge. And look, he's telling me I'm gonna be all right because I was already all right after 8 years. And I can live a different life, and I can be just as I am. And I am buying this, like, he is giving this to me. And look, folks, I left that hospital, I think I skipped home. Like, whistle while you work kind of stuff, right? I'm just happy as a clam walking home. And I was like, what happened? You know what happened? I had a choice. That day I had a choice. I had a choice to believe that I could, and that my life was gonna be okay. And I had a choice to choose hope over fear. I chose hope, because fear really sucked. And everything that he told me empowered me. As scary as it felt, I was like, no, no, no. Like, that's not my freaking story. This is the story I like. We do that all the time. We do that all the time. I think this notion of how we balance hope and fear is so in our faces at any given time. It's in our politics today. It's in your businesses every day. You turn the corner from COVID, then they're like bird flu. What? You know, like it's every day, right? What are you going to choose, folks? You're going to choose hope or you're going to choose fear. I have not had a relapse since that day. I am stronger than, as evidenced by my damn pictures, I'm stronger now than I have ever been. And you know what the truth of it is? I forget I have MS. I literally do. And to me, it's just a thing. I don't think about it. And the first time I told everybody was actually with my book. Most of my family didn't know I had MS until my book came out. Because the day I told my mom, she told me that you're broken. And nobody really is going to marry you because of this. Now, she didn't say it because she's a horrible person. I'm Iranian. It's this whole, like, don't tell anybody your health secrets, right? Like, my brother doesn't talk about my mom having dementia. I'm like, she doesn't have the flu. Like, people are going to know, folks, right? But it's like the whole, like, secretive, like, pride. I released when I wrote that book because it's just a thing. And I'm better than I ever was. But I swear to God, the only magic here was I chose hope over fear. And you're all capable of doing that. It's not magic, it's just a decision, folks. Really.
Finally, I know that
we need to wrap it so people can drink.
We're going to do one final question. One final question. Do we have enough drink back there?
Folks, there's Prosecco, by the way. I made the Prosecco bar move up because you all are hitting the hard liquor hard. And I love that.
We came from work
but there's also Prosecco, so keep drinking. But go ahead.
So final question, and it's kind of similar to the first, and I'm saying to prove a point that we'll end on. When we started working, I know you were like, is this another fitness thing that I'm going to do that doesn't work, that's going to da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And there was a lot of, I guess, doubt, and then it switched. Let's talk about that, and then let's bring these two experiences together.
So I have struggled with my weight all my life. I feel like I have just given you all my secrets. But I've struggled with my weight all my life. I mean, like, bulimic, like all of it. And my best friend who had found me that doctor, he passed away in 2019, very suddenly. And it broke me. But I didn't have time to grieve. Does this sound like we have a little, like, yeah. So I was like, who grieves, right? I don't have time for that. I have to go teach, I've got to work. You know, so I pushed it down, except my weight was like, it showed up that way because it's the heaviness of it all. Grief is heavy, and it showed up in a different way. And then now that was affecting my energy levels. I'm like, I got to change. I got to do something different. I'd heard about Robert because I go to Martha's Vineyard every August, and every fabulous-looking woman of color was like, I have a celebrity trainer. His name is Robert Brace. I'm like, okay. What is Robert Brace's information? So I contacted him because I saw one person, because I live in DC, he's here. I saw one person work out with him online on his account. And I was like, well, if she could do it, I could do it. So I call him, I'm like, listen, I live in DC, you're in New York, can we do this? He's like, I don't know. Why don't we work you out and see what it's like, right? Because, you know, I mean, it's the distance, right? So we get on video on Instagram, and it was supposed to be like 10 minutes. An hour later, he's like, oh, no, we can do this. And I was like, okay, good. He goes, yeah, it's no problem. We can do this. And you know what? You're an athlete. It's going to be easy. I'm like, what? He's like, you're an athlete. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine those words being spoken to me. And I was like, it was the weirdest thing, right? And folks, I have never, I'm 33 pounds down from that day, by the way. I went on keto diet. For people that knew me beforehand, keto was crack for me, right? Like, it was like, I could do it. First week, it's going to be done. I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. Oh, no. I was like, I never thought in my wildest dreams I could give up bread. We had a special relationship, Brett and I, right? We loved one another. I was like, I am not going to be able to do this, but I gave up Brett. I did tell him I will not give up drinking.
She never did.
I was like, because I'm giving up bread, I'm going to need to drink, right? I might need to forget that I gave up bread. But I never did, because I was like, I'm in social situations, so I can't do something that's going to be impossible. Never do that to yourself, right? Like, you do something that you can maintain, and then it became a lifestyle. But all this to say, he's amazing. But he was most amazing because of the words he spoke to me. And I received those words. To the point where, like, a couple of years ago, actually MJ was with me. I don't know where MJ is, but I was teaching for the national program here in New York. And I was telling, I'm on stage, when I talk in class, like, you all know, never ask me to repeat something I said, because I'm like, I don't know. Because I'm like in the moment. So I must have said something like da-da-da, and I'm an athlete, and this, that, and the other. So he comes up to me, this student comes up to me afterwards and goes, oh, you said you're an athlete. What sports do you play? And I was like, I said I'm an athlete? I was like, I said I'm an athlete. Folks, I believe that stuff, right? Like, it was like, oh, yeah, yes, that's yeah. I'll do some push-ups for you. But and this is the moral of the story. We're going to wrap this up, because I do want you all to get food and drink. But here's what I will tell you. This is the importance of surrounding yourself with people that can lift you. He spoke those words to me, and those words manifested themselves. Not because somebody else manifested it, I manifested it. But I believed it, right? So we have, again, choice of who you surround yourself with, right? We all need people to bring us up, right? We all need sometimes to have people tell us how they see us, especially if you don't see yourself that way. For those of you who struggle with imposter syndrome, it is a lie. It is a lie. You are lying to yourself, because nobody else sees you that way, right? You see yourself that way. So get the Robert Braces of the world, because he is amazing. Anybody who wants to work out, I'm going to do a little infomercial.
Do another one.
But he's incredible. Everybody who's in the studios is incredible. This is like, and I'm not even here. I work out we've been training for 4 years online. All the transformation online. I'm here every now and then. When I come here, I'm like, how many pounds did she lift? Oh no, let me go. Like, that's when that happens. But surround yourself with good people. Let people help you. Ask for help. Asking for help does not mean that you are weak or you can't do it yourself. It just means I just need a little bit of love to get through this. And it's really, really important that you do that. Yeah, and I don't know how to thank him enough, to be honest with you, but I think that, and it's my health, it's all of it. As entrepreneurs, we need all of it, right? Get movement. It's so necessary, folks, right? When it goes, it goes. I believe my mom's dementia showed up when she stopped actually being active. It's that quick. That line is that straight. Do that for yourselves, folks, because again, you pour so much into other people, like you've got to pour into yourself. And it's so important, right? Are you done with me? Can I say one more thing? Okay. It's my party. I'll cry if I want to, yeah. Because Glenn is here, and I hate to put him on the spot, I've never read anything from my book. By the way, I'm working on book number 2. A lot of these subjects are going to be in that book. I haven't sold it yet, but I will sell that book. So a lot of what we've touched upon tonight shows up there. It's going to be even more personal. It's really, really, really super personal. But I'm going to hit subjects like grief, toxic gratitude, pride, humility, all this kind of stuff, right? So it's going to be a little sexier, very personal. Page 160 of my book.
And this is about?
This is, I will tell you who's about. Hold on. Of course I can't read right now. It's supposed to be 160, but hold on. Can you find Glenn for me here? 163. 163? Ooh. Thank you. It's 160 of the hardback. MJ, where the hell is it?
163.
Top of the page, second paragraph.
It's not 163. It's at the end of a chapter. we're having technical difficulties right now. Hold on. Okay, here we go. There are many ways to think about and practice presence. Whether you're leaving your phone before going to a party, staring at the sunset from an airplane window, or practicing yoga. But one of my favorite ways to frame presence comes from my student, Glenn. Glenn has been playing the guitar since he was 5 and likens the notion of presence to that of differentiating musical notes. Quote, "I think the most incredible thing that I was able to achieve at a certain point," he said of his music, "was not to play more notes or to play faster, but to leave more space between the notes. What makes music music is leaving space," he said. "Otherwise, the notes just blend together, and that's not music, it's just noise." Ever since he shared this with me, I've thought of presence as the space between the notes. It could be infinitesimal, it could be subtle, but without it, it's all just noise. So if you all wonder why I say put your phones away, there's a lot of noise, folks, right? Create that space, create the silence. It is magical. What you see in those spaces where there's nothing else there but you and whatever's around you, it's incredible. Thank you, Glenn. I am grateful.
Now, before we do our final round of applause for our dear friend here. Not yet. We'll do it in a second. Her new book's coming out. We need to support her.
Not yet. Sell it first.
So we need to go to MORI, TAHERIPOUR.com. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
for my newsletter.
And join the newsletter. We need as many people on that newsletter as possible. So please make sure you do that.
Before you clap, so let me just say this wholeheartedly. Like, I am in a state of just pure joy right now. Thank you for letting me just talk. I hope this was helpful in me not just having a therapy session, but just seeing so many of you. Like, I am literally the luckiest human being on the face of this planet. I love you all. I am grateful for you. And I told Robert, like, a lot of people are going to show up. Jesus Christ. Like, you all came. I love you. I thank you. And thanks to my Goldman Sachs team, by the way. MJ, don't move behind. Like, I saw you. MJ, Frederick, Sandra, like, they are amazing, and nothing gets done without a team, a really good team without you, behind you. MJ's been with me since day one. Like, she is my everything. Frederick, Sandra, thank you so much. Robert, the whole studio here at Brace Life, and for all of you to making the trek. Please eat, please drink. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we do that? Yeah, can we do that? Yeah, maybe we can do a, huh?
Yehovah, can you get it? Okay, so Yehovah will take it.
Should we come this way so we get
So
the light?
how do you want to do it?
Yeah. We can do it.
This way or which
We
is the
can
best way?
even do, before you all move up, I think there's one selfie that we can take so we can get everybody. Hold on 1 second. So let's do one selfie.
Yeah,
Can you do it?
Oh,
If I stand in the elevator.
all right. Oh, okay, cool. So we'll do this one first.